Okay, I have 10 o'clock. I will call the Commissioners' meeting of June 7th, 2023 to order. Welcome back, veteran Patrick Rambo, who's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and welcome back Reverend Roberta Johnson, who's going to lead us in the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
2 Chronicles 7:14 says, "If my people, which are called by my name, would humble themselves and pray, seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land." Let us pray. Father God, in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, I come to you praying that you will continue to bless these commissioners with physical strength, wisdom, direction, guidance, good health, and mental capacity in all their decisions, that their thoughts, their words, and their actions would be controlled by you. Make them aware that as they serve the people of this county, that service is something they get to do and not something they have to do. Keep them humble and committed to prayer as they continually seek your face. And now the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you, and may he give each and every one of you peace. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 2 on the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the May 31st, 2023 Board of Commissioners meeting as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I will open up for any public comment. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda items as listed below for the Office of Children, Youth, and Families and the York County Planning Commission.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Claire, were there any? Claire? Claire? It's all right. Do you have any comments on the consent agenda?
Yes, consent agenda, these are what you'll see is the routine items for adoption assistance or legal custodianship. So it's the typical payments
Okay.
for the families that are helping out the kids.
Okay, thanks, Claire.
Thanks.
Claire.
Did you get the
Sorry
numbers
for the delay.
exchanged?
What's
Did you
that?
get the numbers exchanged?
I did.
Okay,
We keep
good.
saying we're going to have lunch, and
Okay.
we've been saying this, I think,
Okay.
before COVID. So.
All right. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. On to new business.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase between the County of York on behalf of the District Attorney's Office and Celebrate, Inc., Vienna, Virginia, for Celebrate Forensic Suite Products for total cost of $14,400.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I make a motion to approve a purchase between the County of York on behalf of the Public Works Department for use by the forensic team and Whitmoyer Auto Group, Mount Joy, PA, for a 2023 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 for a total cost of $45,000 under a PA CoStar's contract paid from the Firearm Investigation Grant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I make a motion to approve a purchase between the County of York on behalf of the Public Works Department for use by the Quick Response Team and Whitmoyer Auto Group, Mount Joy, Pennsylvania, for a 2023 Ford Transit 250 cargo van for a total cost of $60,156.14 under a PA CoStar's contract paid from the Firearm Investigation Grant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I make a motion to approve a landowner letter of commitment between the County of York on behalf of the Parks and Recreation Department and Horn Farm Center of Ag Education staff to install conservation practices, best management practices on county property located at the Horn Farm Center.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I make a motion to approve and execute a final right-of-way plan for York County Bridge 247 Grantham Road over Yellow Breeches Creek in Monahan Township and begin the right-of-way acquisition process. Acquisitions will begin upon the notice to proceed from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I make a motion to approve of the recommendation from outside counsel to file a complaint in the PFAS, Forever Chemicals, litigation to preserve the status of limitation on some of the claims.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I make a motion to approve a purchase between the County of York on behalf of the Facilities Management Department and H.B. McClure, York, Pennsylvania, for a 7.5-ton air conditioning rooftop package unit for the Youth Development Center for a total cost of $22,915 under a PA CoStarz contract.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I make a motion to approve a contract between the County of York on behalf of the Assessment Department and the Municipal Services Bureau to provide payment processing services for the online auction portal for property auctions.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I make a motion to approve an addendum to the lease agreement between the County of York on behalf of the Facilities Management Department and Lefevre Business Center, LLC, Dillsburg, Pennsylvania, for office space for District Court 19310, originally approved on December 7th, 2022. The addendum reflects an increase in square footage to 3,892 and the annual rent to $93,213.40.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I make a motion to approve a tax refund register 2023-10, authorizing payment of York County real estate tax refunds totaling $46,785.42.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I make a motion to approve the weekly disbursements for the week of June 7th, 2023, totaling $22,026,400.49.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
And this is a lot of money, but this is June, and these are payments for principal and interest on our bond issues.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. On to resolutions.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-11, authorizing Franklin County to join the Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority, a Pennsylvania municipal authority.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I make a motion to ratify Resolution 2023-12 pursuant to the provisions of Act 1995-52 and Section 7501 of the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Services Code as amended, to hereby establish a temporary 30-day countywide ban on all, any, and open burning. This burn ban shall supersede any municipal ordinance to the contrary and is effective June 5th, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Just to let folks know, this was a recommendation from the Fire Chiefs Association and Emergency Management, given the severe drought conditions that we're in and with no precipitation to fall on us in the near future. This was the recommendation from those folks. We will review this on a weekly basis, and certainly, once it's modified, we'll communicate that out to the residents in the community. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. There were no executive sessions since our last meeting. We do have a proclamation today, and I know we are joined by lots of employees from Children, Youth, and Families. So in order to make sure I don't forget anybody's name, I'll just say welcome to everyone collectively, and if you will stay till after the meeting, we'll take a photo with everyone together in the proclamation. So Commissioner Smith is going to read the proclamation.
Child Welfare Professionals Appreciation Week, June 5th to the 9th, 2023. Whereas every day in York County, children are at risk of child abuse and neglect or have been removed from their homes due to such abuse and neglect. And Pennsylvania recognizes the risks and the need to protect the children in the Commonwealth, and the challenging task of investigating child abuse, providing services to families, assessing safety, and working tirelessly to ensure that York County's children are provided with nurturance, family connections, support as they transition into adulthood, and services that allow a child to remain safely in their home or return home as expeditiously as possible, falls to the child welfare professionals of the York County Child Welfare System. And the work of child welfare professionals may require them to enter into situations in which their personal safety may be put at risk. And child welfare professionals work in difficult and emotional situations with children who have been victimized by physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, and other forms of maltreatment. And the professionals of York County must develop great skill in working with families who are in crisis situations, struggling with mental health challenges, suffering from drug and alcohol afflictions, poverty, and other difficult issues. And child welfare professionals must develop substantial knowledge and skills surrounding the rights of families, the laws surrounding child welfare, how to develop culturally sensitive services, and the legal processes governing the system. And child welfare professionals selflessly undertake the endeavor to protect York County's children, often with long hours, tremendous demands, and with dramatic impacts to their personal life. And every year, child welfare professionals are injured or killed in their pursuit to protect children across the United States. And the lasting effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and changes to economic picture has created substantial challenges in the recruitment and retention of staff of child welfare agencies, while the workload has continued to increase. And innumerable injuries and deaths of children in York County have been averted due to the efforts of York County Office of Children, Youth, and Families. Now therefore, we the Commissioners of York County, Pennsylvania, do hereby recognize all staff of the York County Office of Children, Youth, and Families for their dedicated efforts in protecting the children of York County. Given this day in York County, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, on the 7th day of June, in the year of our Lord, 2023. And signed by the Board of York County Commissioners.
So two other things for other business. First, we just wanted to share with everyone that York County has been named a Stepping Up Innovator County for their efforts to collect accurate data on individuals in jail who have mental illness. Just a little background, the Stepping Up initiative was launched in May of 2015 by the National Association of Counties, the Council of State Governments, Justice Center, and the American Psychiatric Association Foundation to mobilize local, state, and national leaders to achieve a measurable reduction in the number of people in jail who have mental illness. York County joined the Stepping Up initiative in 2017 and has taken significant steps toward reducing the number of people in jail who have mental illness, such as focusing on early identification of individuals with mental illness, providing transition assistance for community reintegration, and diversionary programs to keep those with mental health issues out of prison wherever possible. York County is the 4th county to receive this recognition in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and we are the 21st county across the nation to receive this designation. So a lot of folks from the court system to the DA's office to the bar to the commissioners, probation, a lot of folks were involved in making this happen. So a big congratulations to the county. I think this is a testament to our commitment to folks living with mental illness in our community. And last but certainly not least, I would be remiss if I didn't say happy birthday to Mr. Kleindentz, our county engineer. Today is his birthday, so please wish him a happy birthday after the meeting today. He certainly has been a dedicated county engineer coming to every commissioners meeting, and we just want to acknowledge his birthday today. So happy birthday. I don't have a singing voice, so I'm not going to sing happy birthday to you today. So if there isn't any other business, I will once again open it up for any public comment. Okay, if I could have a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. We'll do salary board real quick, and then between salary board and retirement board, since retirement board will be a little long today, since our friend Lee is here, we can do a photo with a proclamation right after salary board, if that's okay with everyone. So I'll call salary board to order for June 7th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for the May 31st, 2023 salary board as submitted.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I will open up for any public comment. Hearing none. I'll move on to item number 4.
I make a motion to approve the positions, salaries, hours of work, and fringe benefits as provided by existing collective bargaining agreements or as set forth in the York County Employee Handbook or York County Policy Manual for the following departments and row offices as stated below with no additional benefits or concessions as otherwise noted, and there is listed in the agenda.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There were no executive sessions since our last meeting. I will open it up once again for any public comment. If I could have a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. For folks watching, we'll just take a brief 5-minute recess, so to speak, and to take a photo, and then we'll be back to convene the retirement board. All right, thanks for your patience, everyone. I will call the retirement board of June 7th to order. Greg, can I have a motion? Can you do the motion? Okay.
We'll see how you are.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting held on May 24th, 2023 as submitted.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I will open it up for any public comment. Hearing none. Hi, Lee. I will pull up Lee's presentation. I am, and thank you so much for sending it in PowerPoint.
Is this on? Hello?
It's up.
Yep.
Okay, I wasn't sure it was doable, but somebody who's far smarter than I was able to do that. So
Okay.
great. And we won't go through every page, but this is basically what you're going to see. The pages in the bottom right-hand corner on the PowerPoint will match with the page in this book. There's obviously more pages in the book that I've given you. So without further ado, let's just take 5 minutes on the market. So if you go forward to the first graphic page, there we go, page 4 there in your book. We did see that GDP did grow again in the first quarter, really continued out of the end of last year, but it was somewhat subdued compared to the fourth quarter, and that was really due to the slowdown in private inventory investment, because companies are really kind of reducing their inventories, seeing slower earnings on the future and potential recession. But although, some of that economic data has looked pretty good this year, there are areas that are looking like we're going to have some headwinds ahead of us, and most economists are still seeing a recession likely within the next 12 months. 2 pieces of data really to show you here. If you go to that bottom bullet, manufacturing PMI, that's whenever that's above 50, that means we're in kind of growth phase here in the US. When it's below, it means we're in contraction. And it's dropped to 46 at this point. Whenever it's dropped to that level in the past, it normally means we're going in a recession after that point. Okay, so that's one point of data. And then the other point to look at, the bottom right there, is the jobless claims. And they have started to increase just slightly. And when that has, every time that has occurred in the past, that has led as a precursor to a recession ahead in the future. If you turn to the next page, why are we seeing all this? Obviously, it's all on the back of the Fed tightening. And the primary goal of what the Fed's trying to do through tightening is to slow the economy and bring inflation down. And often the only way to really do that is take us in a recession. I mean, that is really what the Fed is looking to do here. And really the first area that is broken has been the banking sector, really the commercial banking sector, not so much the retail. Retail assets tend to be more sticky, but those commercial banks that do lending, particularly in the commercial real estate markets, they were quick, their depositors were quick to take their money out of the banks, and the banks that have really rolled into bonds and the treasuries further out in duration, as rates went up, those values came down and they were forced to sell at losses. And that is what took some of these regional banks down. Good news is the large diversified banks out there that have asset management arms, etc., they're very well capitalized, and they've just been able to come in and just take over these banks. And as it sits right now, there's really no fear of contagion in there whatsoever.
But is it true that the federal government's covering anything over the insured rate, and that's not affecting the markets at all, or not?
No, I mean, they said they'll cover up to that rate, but what they're really looking for is the private world, i.e. the JP Morgans and the big banks, to basically come to the support and take these banks over. And that's what's occurred so far.
Okay.
So, I know, I think Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan was in Congress yesterday, and he actually came out afterwards and says, doesn't believe that there's any more on the horizon there, but they'll step up and step in if need be. So the real question, well, I kind of finish up here, is where we go next week to the next FOMC meeting. If we look at the probability of another rate increase, we had one in April, and then at the time the thought was there'd be pausing at this point, because these interest rate increases, as I said a year ago, it takes about a year for it to work through, and we're finally starting to see some of the cracks occurring now because of it. But the job numbers keep coming in really strong. We will get a CPI print before the Fed meets next week, so that will probably give them some indication of what they're going to do next. When we wrote this, as we sat here, we thought at this point it will be a pause. And if you look at that chart at the bottom right there, actually futures are suggesting there'll be some rate cuts before the end of the year. However, those are now, the probability of those have gone down somewhat to more of a 50-50. So as it sits right now, and I've listened to Bloomberg driving in this morning, and you could flip a coin. It's a 50-50. Some economists think they'll move up, others think it'll be a pause at this point, but a potential move in the future if the economy continues to be hot. Half the people don't believe there'll be a recession at this point. Others believe we probably will have a recession, it'll be a mild recession, but not so much likely now this year, but maybe late in the year going into next year. So that is why you have a diversified fund. You know, nobody really knows exactly where rates are going, what's going to happen here, and that's the beauty you're going to see in a minute. With your fund, at least you've got different types of assets that do well in different types of environments. And, you know, that's really what you need to do right now, because nobody is able to time the markets and know exactly what's going to occur going forward. So what did it mean for indices? I'll wrap up here on the next page, just to give you some idea when we get into your performance. So you can see US stocks were up quite strong for the quarter, up over 7%, and that has continued here in the second quarter. And you might think, wow, market's doing great. No, not really.
Lee, do you want us on page 6?
Yeah, sorry, the next page.
There's no
Well,
page-
yeah, the next page. This page is 7, yep.
Okay.
The asset. This is the last page on the market,
Okay.
so the index returns. So as I said, strong returns, 7%. You might think, wow, all the market's going up. Well, no, it's been 7 stocks, the Super 7 as they call them. And they're all the FANG stocks plus NVIDIA, Tesla, Microsoft. So it's all tech or tech related. They've driven about 110% of the S&P return this year. The other 493 stocks have not even been positive. So that has really been a market led by the tech rally. On the thought, we're coming to the end of Fed tightening here. Those were the stocks that got really hit last year as rates went up because they're interest rate sensitive. Now they're doing a lot better on people thinking we're coming to the end of this cycle here. So it's being led by these stocks, and they brought the market up 20% since the bottom in October. So if we do have a recession or issue down the line, then they're likely somewhat to correct again in the future. If you look in the middle on bonds, obviously totally new environment for bonds, and there's one thing we're going to address today is maybe the ability to de-risk, which I think is a good discussion to have for you. You can see a strong environment, again, up 3% for the quarter, and you can see high yield and bank loans, because it was a risk-on environment. Those bonds did a little better, as you can see, up 3.1 and 3.6 respectively, as you would expect. And if you go to the bottom of the page, if you look to inflation-sensitive assets, inflation is coming down somewhat now. We are expecting a year-on-year print of around mid-4s next week, so down quite significantly from previous months. But for the first quarter, tips were still performed quite well, because we did have in that first quarter some rise in inflation. But if you look at more of the longer duration inflation-sensitive assets, such as REITs, such as that listed infra, etc., much softer returns there, and particularly commodities, negative returns on the back of energy prices coming down. So basically everything that did really well last year is not doing as well this year, and vice versa. Getting back to that diversification again and rebalancing to manage your portfolio. So if you could just take me forward 2 pages, we'll look at your fund, and I'll bring you up to speed of where you are this week. I know you would have received your weekly, so you probably know already. But you can see as of the end of the quarter, 497.5 million. You did gain 19 million in the quarter, and you came in 4% net, 4.4% growth, so a little behind policy, as you would expect in a very risk-on quarter. That's equivalent of a 20% return a year. You're looking for 6.8. As you know, when it's really aggressive, you'll lag a little. When it goes the other way, you'll be ahead a little. And that's kind of what you've seen quarter by quarter. The good news, as you've probably seen this week, you're now back over 510 million, and you've gained another 13 million so far this quarter. So gains of about just over 22 million so far this year in the fund, which is good.
Do you remember how the highest level we were ever at
I
one
think you were
time?
like about 530 something,
Yeah.
something around there, just about a year ago.
534, I think.
Oh, okay, 534.
Now, bear in mind, it's not just that delta in assets, because you're paying out about 11 million as well out of
Right,
this.
right.
You know, so if you add that 11 onto that 510, you know, you're probably not too far off being back where you were from a return point of view. What worked well for you, as you heard, kind of more the growth equities. Obviously, growth led the way, whereas value contains more of the financials because of the banking issues. All financials got written down in the first quarter. They're likely to be bounced back somewhat later this year because, as I say, we don't expect contagion in that area. But at least for Q1, growth equities led the way. And then your infrastructure, no surprise to see again, you got another 2.5% for the quarter for that. That's just a steady eddy income producing asset class for you. And your private credit and treasuries work well. What didn't work as well, we talked about value. You have a small allocation to emerging markets, which was a little behind. And your timber farmland, it is indexed in your policy to a private one, but yours is an open-ended one, so you do have a little bit more volatility in that. They did have some write-downs in some operating companies in Chile, farmland, because they actually own some equity in it as well for liquidity for this open-ended fund. So it was the equity portion of it, not so much the actual real asset part of it.
It doesn't make sense, yeah, land going down, it doesn't. It wasn't.
Yeah. It's as I say, they have a piece in operating equity just so they have some liquidity if you want, if you do payouts, etc. So it's a different if you have just a separate account timber fund, but there you rarely get any liquidity unless you get your chainsaw and sell
Right.
lumber at a point in the future. So I see that with PMRS. They have like a 30-year-old timber, and we're only getting income from it now. So, past year though, even with that, still somewhat negative, but you're not negative as most. 80 behind policy, over 2% better than bench, and still in the top 10% of all public funds. So even with lagging your policy a little Q1, again because of that emphasis on diversification, protection on the downside. And then over 10 years, above your assumed rate of return, 7.3 net, 7.8 gross, a little above your policy is 7.5. And again, in where we would expect a diversified fund in and around that between first and second quartile, but above median, and that's what we'd expect longer term for you. Good news is you're going to see much lower risk and volatility too. So, if you could go just quickly to the next page. Some of these I'm only going to be on them for 10 seconds. This is just to show, and I know you get the weeklies, but there is a lot of work that goes on every quarter. I'd like to thank Greg and the Controllers Department for keeping us on the toes. You do have some calls, as you can see here. We take care of those. You do have benefit payments. We take care of raising cash for those. And you'll see here some rebalancing out of equity at the end of the quarter back in the fixed. Again, just good risk management for you. So you don't capture all the downside when that downside occurs. Just keep taking them gains every quarter through rebalancing. Next page is to see the benefit of that. So you can see your rankings in parentheses here on your returns. You saw the 1 year one, if you look out 5, 7, 10, in and around where we expect you, just slightly outside that top quartile into the second quartile. So quite a bit above, and this is net of all your fees. So we netted all your fees out of it, so that's really a good comparison. And there's over 500 public funds there you're being compared to. The good news, if you go on the next page for you guys, compared to 5 years ago, which I know, Barb, you still look at this, that red dot in the right, on the top right there was all the way on the right, meant you're capturing a lot more of the downside. And I said, I know you don't see this yet, but you're going to see it in 5 years. He will come to the left because of the way you structured it now, and that's exactly what's happened. And I see that, what we call that beta in the middle, 0.95. That means you capture about 95% of that market now. So you won't capture it all on the upside. More importantly, you won't capture it all on the downside. What you're trying to hit each year is that 6.8%. As much as you can. That gives you then that budget consistency every year for your contribution. It's not fluctuating up and down. And with much lower volatility, that standard deviation is nearly 5% less now. So just one composite I want to show you on the next page, and then we'll look at a couple of managers and we'll wrap up. This is your fixed income. And I want to show you this just as a kind of lead into the discussion of potentially de-risking here. If you look in the middle of that top line, average duration, you're around about 4 years against the benchmark. You can see there is no bet whatsoever on duration. As I told you, coming in this morning and listening to all these experts, and no one knows what the Fed's going to do. I would argue the Fed really don't know as we sit here right now. Do not take bets against, interest rate bets, so you keep that duration there. But if you look to the left of that, you've still been able to add about 80 basis points of yield. Okay, over 5% now you're getting yield in your fixed income portfolio, just from the manager selection and that little bit that you have in sub-investment grade as well. Compare that to a year ago, it was less than 2%. So it's a much better environment for fixed income now. And that's what we're going to come and look at, maybe de-risking your fund a little bit more. Next page, we can just get in just a few of the managers. This is exactly what you would expect if you look at the two columns, 3 month and 1 year. 3 month, think of that as that very risk-on, growthy type quarter. No surprise when you look at your equity composites for the 3 month, up 6.4, but lagged the bench as 7.2 there. But look at the 1 year, down only 6.7, down relative to 8.6. So again, it gives you that, you'll give a little bit up on the upside, but you'll protect on that downside. And you see that, and that is because of Twin, as you see, lagged obviously first quarter, very much risk on, when they're a very defensive, high quality portfolio. And you can see though, they're still well ahead for the year because they're a defensive, high quality portfolio. Ernest, as you can see, actually has been ahead in both periods, which has been a bit unusual, but they've done a stellar job for you since inception. Global, you see exactly the same. Lag a little for the quarter, but still a good absolute return, north of 6%. But for the 1 year, when the market's been down 7.7, you've only been down 4.2. Again, because of that mix of your three managers that you have within the global equity space. If you turn over on the international side, you do lean a bit more to value. However, Schroders did outperform. Sorry, next page, 24. There we go. Yep, perfect. Thank you. You can see Schroders were slightly ahead for the quarter, but behind for the year. Similar story, Harding Loebner, lagging a little for the quarter, but ahead for the year. So the only one that's been somewhat disappointing, and it's really due to the China tech holdings they have, is Wellington. And actually this afternoon in our OCIO meeting, we do have an emerging manager search discussion, and you probably will see us switch that manager here before the end of the quarter. It's less than 2% of the portfolio. It doesn't really impact the total fund much, but I'm a perfectionist, so I want to try and if there's a way of trying to improve things, even if it's less than 2%, I still want to do it. So. Now we get into your diversifying assets, and these are the things that have really done well for you the past couple of years. As you can see, your defensive equity for the quarter, parametric up 5.6 relative to 4.3. That's the base portfolio. That tells you that the options, you're getting a 130 basis point bump from those options there, because people are still fearful of where the economy's going. They want the insurance, they pay for it. And you've been able to benefit from that. The good news now as well, that composite there is 75% cash, T-bills. A year ago, it wasn't making anything. Now you're making near 4.5% on that alone, just sitting there. So that's been a good add for you. Real estate, as you can see for the year, very good returns when equities have been down. Clarion did take their write-downs in the first quarter. These 25 funds in the Realist Odyssey Index, have been writing down the past few quarters. Clarion did theirs in the first quarter, as you can see, so did lag, but still ahead for the year, even with their write-downs. TA, which was that new real estate fund we're able to get you in, doesn't have any of those type of assets that they need to write down, which is why we put you in it. As you can see, that's barely even been negative for the year when the bench has been down 4. So that's been very strong for you. And then finish up on the last page. Infrastructure, as I said, no shock, another 2.5% for the quarter there. That's those long-dated, regulated industries that are just writing checks, paying you the income every quarter. That's been a great diversifier for you the past couple of years. So you have 2 managers there diversified within that. Timberland we talked about. As you can see, that timber farmland bench is a private, so you won't get some of the volatility. But the operating companies, those write-downs they saw in the first quarter really impacted more the longer returns there. So we did have a due diligence call with them. We do have it on watch. The problem with that is it's not like there's lots of products in that area. This really was and is. There's only 2 products where you have open-ended and liquidity. So at some point those listed ones will bounce back. So we do expect, relative to that private bench, that you should expect a bit of a bump at some point over the next couple of quarters. And then you get in your privates, private equity and private credit. As you can see, you had a great start to private credit. If you look all the way on the right there, since inception up 12, whereas the benchmarks was only 1. Likewise with your private credit, up 4.4, whereas your benchmark's 1.7. So again, they've been good diversifiers for you. And then your fixed income is basically going to be fairly close to the benchmark. You only have 19% allocated there right now, so it's very important to keep the powder dry there. And that's why we keep that very safe. You've got treasuries there, and you've not got managers that are taking much risk there. So, so all in all, very diversified. I mean, it takes 3 pages to cover all your managers now because of the diversification. Quickly on, I just wanted to talk a little bit about potential de-risk. If you go to the next page, one thing I want to show you here, if you just look at the bottom of the page, and this is your 1-week sheets. At the top, you can see in red, you're behind in equities, underweight equities. At the same time, you're underweight fixed income. They're your traditional assets. Why are we still a little underweight those? Because of all the overweights to everything you've added in diversification has done so much better. That's why they're slightly overweight and the others are underweight. So if anyone ever asks, why do you invested in this? Well, that's one of the reasons why. You can see how they've done much better for you. So good work, all the work you've done over the few years in pulling this together, it's worked very well for you. Now, just to wrap up, let's do the looking ahead piece here. It's just 2 pages, 28 and 29. So if you go to 28 first, this will just show you the difference. So remember, about 5 or 6 years ago, I came in here and said, future for fixed income is not good. Your portfolio looks like it's going to make 6.5% going forward. So you guys started to add a little bit more into equity, like everybody out there. The good news with you is you didn't put it all in equity, you added diversifying assets as well. Some folks have 70% equity at this point, which is extremely volatile. Funnily enough, your 5-year return is around about 6.4%. But anyway, if you look 3 years ago, core bonds at the bottom there, the 10-year return assumption was about 1.7% at that point. Now look where it is. It's about 300 basis points better. So when you put all your kind of mix together, if you go to the next page, currently your mix, whereas a few years ago I said it was getting you around about 6.5, we now expect about a 7.2% return looking forward over the next 10 years. Okay, remember, this is the 10-year look ahead, with a volatility of 10.27. Okay. Your assumed rate of return is 6.8, and you only have 20% in fixed and cash. Wouldn't it behoove us at this point, now you're a lot better funded, maybe to take our foot off the gas a little bit more here, Because even if you just take 5% from equities and put it in a fixed income, you can see, yes, your return does go down a bit. The expectation drops about 14 basis points, okay? But it's still well above your assumed rate of return of 6.8. But more importantly, look at that assumed risk. It drops considerably. It drops 84 basis points. Therefore, your overall, what say there, the Sharpe ratio, thinking out of your risk-adjusted return, is much higher, 0.75 instead of 0.7. So my thought is, we should always bring these information up to you as you're looking ahead. I did speak to your actuary. He is not looking to take your assumed rate of return down anymore or change any more of your assumptions this year. So that assumption is going to stay there at 6.8. Well, if you can take a bit of risk off the table and still potentially meet that long term, and your actuary is very comfortable with you doing that, it may behoove you to do that. So that would be the asset allocation decision is the board's decision. Then we implement that decision with picking the managers for you. So any thoughts on that?
So just explain it one more time. You're asking us to rebalance or reallocate
Just
what to
reallocate.
what?
Yes, so just take equities. It says there,
Equity to fixed.
reduce your public equities,
Okay?
by 5% and put it in fixed income.
Which is safer.
But, yeah, fixed income is,
Yeah,
right.
because you're getting a much higher return in fixed income now, as
Right.
you saw earlier. You're getting
Right.
over 5%
Right.
in that.
And that kind of rolls with interest rates, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
much,
whatever we're,
yeah. And I'm talking to all my plans about de-risking because why wouldn't you? I mean, you can be greedy and try and stretch for more return, but if you have a negative year, you're going to lose more at that point.
Since the market's so shaky, it makes sense to do that.
so like you were saying, you're going out of Wellington, which had like $9 million, so,
Yeah, so that could be part of it. I mean, you wouldn't just take it from one manager. We'll kind of lower some of the, we'll implement it for you. We'll say where the money comes from. But it'll go into just safe core fixed income. So investment grade fixed income.
Right.
Which is paying much, much higher yields now. So
so do we have to make a decision on that?
that would be a board decision.
That's a
yeah.
board decision.
Yeah.
You guys all right with it?
Makes sense.
I mean, if you guys agree, I'm,
Yep.
Yeah, our job is to help you really look forward. I mean, I come in here and talk about all the look back, but it's really looking forward to what you need to do.
it's not on the agenda.
There'll be a-
Probably do that.
There'll be a form to sign.
We should probably do that
with the-
formally as a motion.
There'll be a form to sign, yeah.
But we should put that on as the next agenda item, so it's open to the public.
Okay.
So if anyone wanted to come in and comment.
That's
We
fine.
didn't publicize it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do it any time in the future. I mean, then we can always implement it the day after. I mean, it's not. No, I mean, we're looking ahead. This is a 30-year plus duration pension fund. You don't have to do things this minute. But I think that makes sense. And then later in the year, you look at it again, you could potentially de-risk again.
Right.
So just like over the past 15 years, you've been inching up dollar cost averaging in no equities. Now it's the environment maybe to start bringing it back. So that's your pension fund. I promise the next two I'll do off the observation pages for you. But the pension fund's the big fund and the one you should have a bit of attention on. So if you go...
But the end of the discussion of the pension fund, is there a percentage of being fully funded now, or where we're at? What percentage?
that would be Greg Stump.
That's Greg.
Boomershine.
Okay.
I think he's doing your reports now,
Yeah,
isn't he?
yeah.
All right.
That's another reason, like you've grown it back up to above 90% funded. You don't want to give it back.
Right,
So,
right.
that's another reason.
I mean, that's always the thing we ask, how well is your pension fund funded, I mean.
We
that's-
actually got over 100 at one
Everybody
time when
has
the
that.
market went, but.
Yeah.
All right.
So if you want the OPEB follows, just quickly. There we go. We'll just cover it off here. So this rhymes a lot with, obviously, with the pension fund, at least from the traditional assets that are in there. But it's a lot smaller fund at 35 million, obviously. You don't have all your privates in there. So you can see, yep, similar type of return for the quarter, similar kind of return for the year. Attribution point of view, exactly the same things that work well outside of obviously the real assets for the OPEB fund there, and similar things on the downside for that fund too. It has grown again. You've added about another, you gained 1.4 million in Q1, another 600,000 so far in Q2. So you're about $2 million of gains again this year, which is good.
When we started this fund, what did we put in it originally? I can't
I
remember.
think it started with 7, didn't it, Tyler?
I have that
7
on the
million
next
or 13
page.
million?
Yeah, 6.9.
6.9.
6.9?
That was the annual,
So-
that was the annual fund.
Yeah, 6.9 you put it originally, and you can see you've had gains of 8 million since then. And then you've made other contributions in since, and
Right.
taken some money out too. That's all on the, I promise I won't take you to the other pages, but you'll see that on the next page on the right column. It'll have since inception, original investment, amount of money contributed, amount of money came out, gain, and all that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's basically $8 million you've not had to go to your general fund.
Right,
and
general
pay
fund,
out.
right.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a really good. Very low fees on that too. I did put at the bottom there, consider de-risking, but I did speak to Greg Stumpton, and your OPEB still is at 7%. Because this is not as well diversified, their risk-adjusted returns don't kind of get you there. You've really got to kind of keep this asset mix for OPEB for now, unless he potentially talks to you in the future about maybe lowering that assumed rate of return. But we'll continue to look at that throughout the year for you. But as it stands now, not really in a position to de-risk from that, looking ahead what the return could be, because your current mix actually gets you about right on 7%.
One thing that doesn't make sense to me, and I don't understand how, you always talk about low management fees.
Yeah.
We have a fund, a pension fund, that's over $500 million.
Yeah.
And the fee is 0.45.
Yeah.
When you look at economies of scale, you think at a lower pension fund,
Yeah, you
like
would,
for
yeah.
this, is only 35 million, and the fees are 0.39.
Yeah, you
It doesn't look like it makes sense.
Yeah, and that's a great question. Now, if you look at the traditional parts of both funds, actually the OPEB is a little more expensive because of scale, but your diversifying assets that you have in the pension fund cost more. When you get into private real estate, private infrastructure, obviously far more expensive than buying the S&P 500 index at a basis point. So that is why it is more expensive you see in the pension fund.
Okay.
But really good question. The average institutional pension fund in the US is about 55 basis points fully in. But they may have some hedge funds and that in there, which you guys don't.
We don't have any hedge funds.
You don't have any, yeah, you don't have any of that 2 and 20, you know,
We've been
2%
asked.
Not
fee,
my watch.
20% performance. Yeah. So good question. So anyway, OPEB, I think, keep as is for now. Say if Greg looks to change some assumptions in the future for you, then obviously we can revisit that one as well as the potential to de-risk. Less of an issue de-risking a fund that's only 35 million. It doesn't cost you as much as the pension fund does each year. So this can be more of a kind of get your foot down and just let it grow longer term. And then the final one, if you go forward a few pages, probably five or six pages, to the deferred comp plan. There we go. Next page. Okay, great. And just show you 2 pages here because I did take the liberty of snipping a couple of Empower exhibits out of their report because they're
What page
nice and
number is it?
colourful and tell
47.
us a lot. Here, fund grew again, as you would expect, through contributions and gains. You're now over 26 million. As you're going to see shortly, you know, you've got a lot of good positive trending from a employee engagement point of view. You won't see it in this report, but you will see it now when you go on Empower that the T. Rowe Price fund was changed to the JP Morgan fund in April. So next quarter's report, you'll see that change there in that fund. If you look at all the employees' investments, just a little over 2/3 of them are just invested in those target date funds at 8 basis points. And I would say that is probably the right move for most folks, because they just put them in. This is when I retire. You can set it and go away and leave it. And, I would say even in my 401k, that's what I do. And I do this 24/7. So, but those that have done it themselves, you can see, another decent quarter. 7 of your 9 active managers did outperform their benchmarks for the quarter. And when you look at your overall investment fees here for all your employees, 13 basis points all in. So very low cost, really low cost. Considering when you transition this, your costs were north of 1% at that time.
Right.
When you had it in Nationwide, if you remember.
Nationwide is not on
Yeah,
your
yeah.
side.
So your employees have the benefit of getting access to institutional funds, which they wouldn't necessarily be able to do by themselves.
The strange thing is probably 2/3 of our neighbors are still with Nationwide. Makes no sense.
Yeah, you're just giving away money. So this just shows you what I've just said from the investment strategy point of view, the graphic at the bottom. And I'll finish just on the next page with just a couple more graphics, because I know we're going to be meeting Holly here. So on page 47, and these are just the trends that I was talking about. So you can see quarter by quarter, everything continues to, we'll say the word improve, but more engagement, more people are participating, more people are contributing more every quarter. As you can see, there's over 14% of your employees now contributing over 10%, which is a pretty high number considering most folks put the money in the in the cash balance part for the DB first. What you'll probably find, and I don't have individual employees' info, is those that are later in their careers are probably doing the extra money into that. But that was good to see that folks.
Thanks to the commissioners, too, for approving the extra contributions. That's really helped.
Yeah. So it's good here that I think, and on the bottom one there, that's the managed accounts. Those getting advice, that's picking up as well. So it seems like you got an engaged group and kind of understand that investing for your retirement is important. And as I say, over 2/3 of them are probably doing the right thing, just putting in target dates.
I should know this, but Greg, in the orientation, are new people coming in for employment with the county given information about the deferred comp? Okay. I
Yeah,
didn't know
Cherie in our office does.
She does it? Okay, that's good. I never heard it up there.
Yeah, another thing I want to add is Empower is also partnering with our pension provider, PTG. So pretty soon, you'll be able to go in and see everything.
Yeah,
Your
that'd be
defined
great.
benefit and your deferred comp in one place, be able to plan everything out. So that's a big deal.
That finishes at least my part, if there's any questions.
So we were talking before, I guess, Julie, what you said, do we have to put a motion on the next retirement board and then vote on it since it's publicized?
Yeah, I can send you an addendum to the IPS that'll show the change, and that's what you can put in your agenda.
That's great.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the PowerPoint slides.
That's-
That one's smoother.
I will
Yeah.
let Christine know, my office.
That did
She
go
will
smooth.
appreciate that.
Whoever
Thank
did
you.
that for you, thank them.
Yes, I will do. Thank you.
Okay. So,
There were no executive sessions and period of public comments. Right?
okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.